That's been like another shift of my business over the past quarter and a half is like really trying to make everything some sort of purpose driving cause. Like you have to wake up and get out of bed every day trying to solve a problem in the world and not just get rich or get an exit, but it does something for somebody. And it doesn't have to
Yes.
be providing wells and water to villages, which is awesome. And I want in on that. But if you're trying to make your workplace better, you're trying to empower people so they can have the best career, and this is the best place they've ever worked in their life, like that is still a purpose.
Hey everyone, welcome to Reanimated Stories. I am your host, Roger of Reanimation Design, and today we have a really cool episode. I'm interviewing Mark, and Mark, we have met through a couple of different means, but really it was just through a great connection. And through that connection, we've been able to talk. We've been able to get to know each other a little bit more. And I said, Mark, I want to have you on my podcast. I want people to hear what you do. Such a cool story. Mark is actually joining us from Mexico. That's where he lives, but he also is in Ohio, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And I'm here in Texas, and that's super cool. That's one of the things that I really love about just podcasting and all this and networking, right? Is just being able to meet people, even though Mark is, I'm technically, I think we're in the same time zone because of where he's at, but different places, we're able to connect different people and just really great. So Mark, thanks so much for coming out today.
Oh, thank you, man. I think this is a cool opportunity because it is that testament to my life and kind of who I want to be and who I say I am. So you like trying to make the world a little smaller just by following the degrees of Kevin Bacon. So you're someone I know from a very recent connection, but I feel like I've known forever, and
Yeah.
it's been like that for me recently, and I'm proud of that, and it's just led to cool opportunities. So I'm just kind of riding this wave of saying yes, even though I
Yes.
feel like I'm a little short in time in the day to make the time for opportunities like this and the who knows who and how to follow those threads. It's always led to cool opportunities. So this is one of them, and thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, it is. It's one of those things where like, and I like how you said that, making the world a little smaller. If you're doing networking, and especially if you're in a local space or something like that, right? You're going to connect with people, and then you're gonna be like, hey, I remember you. I saw you last time somewhere. I was talking with somebody. I met them at this. It's like a once a month sort of thing. And really quick, if anybody's watching this, there may or may not be a delay when you're watching this. I don't know what's going on today. My camera is super laggy and I'm not really sure what's going on. So in case anybody sees that and they're like, what is Roger doing? But I remember I had met this person and they were like, man, I know that I've seen you at this other event and I know that people have been talking about you. And I was like, man, I don't know if I've ever been to that specific event. I know what you're talking about. I don't know if I've ever actually, been there and all that. But it's just one of those things like where it's like, well, no, because I know this person and I know this person. And so I know that they've been talking about you, but I've also heard you over, and so it's just really cool to connect with people like that. And it's just, it's really bringing that in. And it really is, when you're like, oh, wow, the world really is a small place, and kind of bringing that in. So, Mark, real quick. So I want you to just kind of give us a little bit of where you're at. So I mentioned that you were in Mexico, but tell us a little bit about where you're at, what you're doing, and just what you do in general. I'd want to hear about that.
Yeah, if you try to draw all the strings for the country, I'm in the smack dab of Mexico. Like the city I live in is called Querétaro, and that's the same as the state name. And so the capital cities here are on the west side. And so one like small little suburb of us is like perfectly in the middle of the country. And I came down here a couple years ago just because my wife is a teacher and we got eloped in Mexico on our honeymoon, started throwing some spaghetti at the wall. By the time we probably got home, I think she already had some initial interviews for jobs lined up. And so she's a teacher. Her life goal was always to live, teach, work, do something outside the country. And so Mexico was an easier soft launch being from the United States for us, but also, and I'm sure I'll get to a really cool opportunity to build in a different place, but a very creative space and a very connected space. I'm Mark. I think going back to your original question, who am I? I'm a part-time partner for people like you, Roger. I think it's for people that have a dream, have a plan, maybe have a small business, usually some sort of visionary and someone that needs to figure out how to clone themselves and have it figured that out yet, or enough budget to hire the full teams they need, they hire a mark. So we have a business called Yo Beebo. I'm the founder of that, which is a real name. There is a story behind that, but probably a long one for another day. But we operate between the US and Mexico. If we don't hire, then we partner with the people who do something very specific, very, very well, and align with us on our values and the way we want to work to serve our clients and our partners with whatever they need to knock down the barriers of growing their business, moving it forward. For those that just really can't hire a full-time biz dev person, or, are still trying to kind of figure things out as they go. And so that does fall into like startups to nonprofits and kind of everything in between.
Yeah, no, that's really great. And if anybody was watching, I was looking down because it actually, Mark, as we were talking, I was like, oh yeah, you know what? I just met somebody recently, and I was like, I want to connect you to them. So yeah, I just kind of thought about that
There we go.
as you're talking about. Yeah, no, it works. That's really cool. So I know a little bit of the story of you, going down to Mexico, and that's so cool. Eloping, and your wife is down there, and so you still travel, correct, between the U.S. and Mexico, right? So you're not just there full time. You're going back and forth because you're doing that biz dev, because your idea is to get yourself in a company that is eventually going to really kind of have you step out of there. You're kind of working yourself out of that job almost. Is that correct?
If we do it right,
Yeah.
um, I'm sure there's always going to be ways for our teams to work with businesses and be a good partner to them if we are the third party to do something. But it would also be a major win for us to build those systems and processes around what we're doing so that when the right time to hire internal support for those things or someone to own that, we can help find that person, transition them into the role and figure out what the next problem to solve is. So the back and the forth thing between here and Ohio, I do a lot of traveling, but I try to keep it to a minimum and try to keep it around Q1 of the year. That comes from this, like, I'm a man of many lives. And one of them is my first love was the sport of lacrosse. I played it growing up. I had to have a hard decision going into college. Do I want to learn skills, or do I want to play at a school that's very expensive and probably not going to help me with where I want to go in my career? So I ended up going to the University of Cincinnati. And at that time, so I became a referee when I was 14. And so when I was in college, I actually became a college lacrosse referee and was one of the
Oh,
youngest to ever
wow.
do that.
Wow.
And so that has propelled me in a very weird path in my life. That is kind of that side
Yeah.
hustle. And so Q1 of the year is lacrosse season. So I'm able to still continue to officiate collegiate lacrosse and anything else while I'm in town by like subsidizing my travel for Yo Beebo and Affero and the other things that I do by being in the Midwest. My parents are still there, my family's there, my network. So I have like all these different networks from all these points in my career that I've worked really hard at keeping a thread tied through things. Even when I went from all these different transitions in my career, to keep people clued in the story and kind of keep using the people no matter where they are to share ideas with and swap information and swap referrals, even when I've kind of left their space or their market or their
Yeah.
territory. And so it's all kind of come back around, but I do have clients in the United States and in Ohio. And so it's nice to spend time with them. But like Americans are busy, right? And people have so many different things for their kids to do. And that like taxi
Yeah.
service mentality, or like when I'm off, I'm off. And so down here, it's a little different for me to be able to connect with people, stop and smell the roses, kind of ideate and spend a lot of time thinking about stuff. And it's ironic because a lot of the times I'm in the United States, it's easy to get meetings with new people, but the people I already work with, my friends, my partners, even though I'm 10 minutes away, they're like, hey, let's just do a Zoom. I've got a busy morning. And I'm like, I'm 2,000 miles closer and we're still meeting over the internet.
Yeah.
So I spend time going back and forth, and it depends if I'm doing fundraising or any kind of like lobbying, sales, any larger efforts in the US. But it's nice to just kind of see a lot of those groups one time a year and then just keep checking in weekly and trying to meet the goals from afar.
Yeah. really quick, because I want to kind of get into that, because I know that because you have, a few different things that you're doing. But that's interesting though that you had mentioned lacrosse. There was a gentleman here that I had met just through networking, and he did like home inspections or something. And it was interesting. The name of his business was A to Zebra. And the reason where the zebra came from is, one, he did home inspection. So he's going to be so on one level, I'm going to check all of them, right? But the zebra came from where he was also a collegiate and I believe high school level lacrosse, not coach, referee. And so he also did, I think he also did a couple like high school football games and all that. But the main thing was lacrosse. So that's actually really interesting, isn't that? That's such a small world, right? In that idea of like lacrosse and all that. And so that's really cool. So yeah, you're not the first person that I've heard do that. And he introduced me to somebody else that also did that. And I thought that was actually really cool. And I also really liked the fact that you had made, like, yes, I'm here sometimes, but then I'm also over here in another time, right? But the thing that I think that you brought out that I think is really important, because it works not just in business, but also just in relationships in general, right? I have a friend who lives in Nashville. He's my best friend. And it's not like, all right, well, I got to see him this last year. First time we've been, in the same room, right? Not talking on a phone or texting or whatever in years, and it's not one of those things where it's like, well, he's my best friend, but that's the first time that I've talked to him in so many years because we were in the same room. No, we're constantly talking to each other. And I think that that's such a huge, huge thing, not just in personal relationships, but also in business. We forget that, and you said it perfectly, is that like, I'm still checking in with them. I'm still seeing them, even though I may only see them once or twice, a year, something like that, or once a quarter, whatever, right? I may only see them once, but I'm still checking in with them. I'm still connecting with them. I'm still passing referrals. I'm still doing the same because I'm keeping in line with them, because you're trying to stay top of mind because they're good connections for you. And I think that that's huge, because we do that in our personal life, but then it comes to business and we're like, oh, well, no, when I see them, I see them, instead of keeping that mentality going of connecting with them.
And my business is small, my dream is big, but I still think the qualification gate is going to stay specific, because if you can't trust me to be accountable, or my team, and I can't trust that out of you and your team, then we shouldn't be working together. And I
Yeah.
don't want to ever have those partners where something gets passed down, a team doesn't want to implement because they're like, oh, we didn't understand, or he didn't tell us this. And it's like, if there's people just already having that friction of not wanting to grow and progress the company or learn something new or whatever, like, we're not going to be a good fit. If they're excited about fresh eyes and people empowering them to do their jobs better and to be the hero of the story, like, that's where we can step in and put time back in people's day, money into their bank account, make everybody feel connected to this cause that we're all working towards. But Roger, that's been like another shift over my business over the past quarter and a half, is like really trying to make everything some sort of purpose driving cause. Like, you have to wake up and get out of bed every day trying to solve a problem in the world, and not just get rich or get an exit, but it does something for somebody. And it doesn't have to
Yes.
be providing wells and water to villages, which is awesome. And I want in on that. But if you're trying to make your workplace better, you're trying to empower people so they can have the best career, and this is the best place they've ever worked in their life, like, that is still a purpose. And so
Yeah.
if you can, if lead like that, then I can be a good partner for you. If it's just like we've been stuck because we've done it the same for decade and decade and nothing works, it's like, I want to refer you to people who have time in their day for that. But
Yeah.
my team, that's not where we want to put our energy.
Yeah. That is so true. The idea of your purpose in business doesn't have to be necessarily, right? Well, I'm going to solve world hunger. It doesn't have to be that. Like, that is a great cause, and like you said, yes, I want in on that, right? Whatever that may be. I had an episode, about a nonprofit that I help support, and but that doesn't mean my everyday sort of thing has to be waking up like, okay, today I'm going to figure out how to get, a well in, some far off country. It's, how can I help the clients that I have? How can I help them not stay awake at night trying to think, okay, how am I going to get my next paycheck? Where's my next client coming from? For me, it's, helping them with video marketing and website and all that sort of stuff, so it's like, how can I help them have that presence online and get found when people, when their roof is leaking, when they need a sales coach, when they need, fill in the blank? How can I help my clients get found so that they in turn can use their passion, their skills, their talents to help those clients, And so, yeah, 100%. I think that that's so true because I remember when I first started, I was like, well, I mean, I'm just doing web design, right? And and when you kind of come in with that, it's like, okay, well, I'm just doing that. It's like, no, 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 no. I'm helping grow a business. I'm you may only have 5 employees at the moment, right? And once you get to a certain point, then you kind of start bringing in an internal marketing team. Man, that would be fantastic if I was able to be like, hey, I've taken this company, like they're continuing to grow. And now, just like you said, if I do it right, they don't need me anymore because I've helped them grow. And now they're able to do it internally, take that and just kind of run with it. I think that that
Yep.
is such a huge thing. And I think, and I love that you talked about that purpose aspect of it.
Well, for me, man, like two of the coolest people I have in my life, one is here and one's from the hometown. And they're two of my best friends turned clients, partners, whatever. And they're both sitting in generational legacy family businesses
Mm.
and more in industrial spaces or very blue collar spaces. But they're laying up at night thinking about how do they do it better than their dad did it, than grandpa did it,
Yeah.
because they care so much. And it's not about becoming rich. Like they were born into something that they're going to inherit and they don't care about that at all. It's like, how are they going to move this business into the future? Have more to show than the last generation. If they were given something that had been grown or their dad had and now it's passed on to them, they want to grow it for the next one. And like that is an incredibly cool purpose, even being in like B2B or blue collar industries or whatever, that like they want to do right by their employees because they care so deeply about that legacy. And like that's fascinating to me because I didn't inherit something like that. And my dad was a janitorial supply salesman and had a really awesome career, but a very different path than I took. And so I think like those things are very fascinating to me because they have that same energy and care as like nonprofit executive directors I work with and startup founders that are up all night building the thing they care about. Like they would not be
Yeah.
stopped. These people don't want to go on vacation, even though they say they do on paper, because like they love what they're
Yes.
doing. Right.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing. Not they can't. They really don't want the break from what they're working on. And so sometimes that is necessary and to try to
Yeah.
guide them there. But I love anybody that has that purpose. And so I've been really shifting my business to be specific about who we're trying to identify, who we can help and who we can talk to. But at the same time, if you come to me and you're not qualified, you're not right for us, whatever, I always want to have someone I trust to send you off to.
Mm.
Maybe it's the good business karma. Maybe it is qualifying you to come back to me later when you're better prepared to work with our business. But either way, I never want to say no or just let something go.
Yeah. And that's, and part of that is having a good network. I remember when I first started, I was like, man, I don't really have anybody to, talk to in the sense of like, I don't have anybody to connect. I'm like, man, I'm connecting with all these people, but I don't really have anybody to connect to, or somebody that you don't already know. And I think that that's so crucial that when maybe we're not a right fit, or maybe I don't necessarily do what you need at the moment, but I know these other 2 people that can help you. One of them can do it, because so it's not like you're not a period, you're a
Mhm.
comma. You're like, it's not like, okay, well, I can't do it. It's, I can't do it. However, let me introduce you to, and that is so huge. That is crucial. And that's big because you're starting to think bigger than yourself. And just like, talking that's having purpose. That's having a goal in mind of that we may not be ready, right? But if it was like, oh, well, I got to make money, right? So I'm going to charge them off, out the wahoo or whatever, and that sort of thing. But it's like, no, I mean, like, let me connect you to somebody that I know can do this and might be able to do it better than me. And maybe you can come back to me at some other point, but I'm going to make sure that you're taken care of. And that is huge. And I love that you said that. The nonprofit, you mentioned nonprofits. And so you mentioned that you have different, and I know that you have different businesses, but speak a little bit to those. So you have Yo Beebo, but then you also have another one. Speak a little bit to that one as well, because that's such a really cool one. On top of that one.
Thank you for asking. I try to really stick to this mentality. I went through a coaching program with shout out John Meyer. and he really beat into me for like a whole quarter. Specificity is referability. So I'm like, I'm only going to
Mm.
talk about one thing here. But the
Yeah.
worst part is like, I want to just be Mark because Mark does a lot of things for a
Yeah.
lot of people and whatever. But Affero is, I would call it more of like a civic tech than more than a fintech startup
Yeah.
based out of Ohio, but to serve the globe. Our team has built this product in the MVP coming out of Latin America to start pilots in the United States that we've already got locked in, and then hopefully expanding it around the world. But basically, it costs way too much money to give a dollar, track a dollar, prove the outcomes of a dollar. With the current federal government and funding drying up in a lot of ways, foundations and different creative ways, philanthropic ways of funding nonprofits have become more important than ever. And then also those nonprofits verifying those outcomes, proving the impact of that money, or it's going to end up somewhere else is more important than ever. So Affero, we say, is the fix for broken aid delivery. It is an entire infrastructure for moving that money as quickly and as seamless as possible, whether those are direct cash transfer programs, emergency relief, any sort of aid that nonprofits are already providing. And then now they have basically a couple click dashboard of knowing where that money is going in real time, being tracked by like merchant category codes so they can see, hey, this was spent on power bills at the grocery store, this information in aggregate. So no one's getting in trouble for buying sugary cereal or something silly like that. But having that dignity and the autonomy to spend the money for however they need to in the programs that they're in. So it's basically a vehicle for healthcare systems that are moving these social determinants of dollars, like requirements and budgets that they have, down to nonprofits that are paying volunteers, people in the family, in the community, single mothers, any sort of support that already exists. We are the vehicle to move that and help people become way more efficient at moving that money and stretching it a lot further. So a Pharaoh is kind of in that build to go to market stage this summer. But Yo Beebo, my business, was kind of built how I've served Affero, from taking this thing to an idea to it's a real deal and we're launching the thing. And everything that I'll continue doing for Affero, I'll basically plug it back into the system of Yobebo as a system and process for the next thing that I've learned how to do in my life. So, Yobebo has basically been built on everything I've learned how to do through the school of bootstrap startup, small business, XYZ along the way. Like, write it down, put it in a system and process. Where is that information from A to Z come from? How do we do it so that people don't have to take forever to learn, make mistakes, whatever? And my team can help accelerate, but people by going to the files and saying, what do we know about this? Or who is our partner for that? So Affero is kind of it's in its infancy, but it's been the guinea pig for measuring all that success of what am I doing at Yobebo around something that has been built almost more of a, we say it takes a village model. And it's been a lot of people with our founder, Rachel, carrying around this bucket of great ideas and people turning it into a sieve. And it's like, here's the problems, here's the regulation, here's why that's not going to work. And her and the people in the village around her going back and not just plugging those gaps, but building, a better bucket, a better bowl, and a better delivery method for what we're trying to do. Because she was the type of person that comes from a educational background, a school teacher background, an administration background, that has seen the problems firsthand and been so frustrated at the way the system works to solve those problems and keeping people in a poverty loop instead of creating pathways out of it and letting them have access to these resources in one place. And, that's been the mission from Affero from day one. And it's looked a lot of different ways until it got locked in on this is the product we need to build to have the largest impact we can.
That's really incredible. There's a few things that stood out. One, the whole poverty cycle. Yeah, it is. Yeah. If you can break somebody out of that, because I think a lot of people don't even realize, you know, that it's just like, why am I always back in this same spot? And it's like, well,
It,
there are certain systems, and I'm not trying to blame, all that, but at the same time, there's certain systems that's just kind of how it operates. And also the mindset And I love that, knowing some nonprofits myself and kind of being involved with that, that idea of like, okay, well, we need this quickly, right? We need these funds. We need to figure out how can we kind of break people out of this cycle? How can we help people now, even though necessarily we don't have it, but we're going to figure it out. And that's that mentality again, right? Going back to what you had said earlier of, we can't do it right now, but we're going to figure out how we can do that, right? Like let's work together and let's figure out how we can do that. And that's so cool how, one business is kind of feeding into the other and vice versa and all that, like the leadership that you're bringing to that and what you're trying to do for other companies, you're modeling that in your other. And I think that's really great. As you've been going through this, what is something that you're just like, man, if I could tell somebody this, they're going through something, maybe they're trying to start a business, or, they're kind of in this space, what is something that you've learned that you're just like, this is something that I want people to understand? You've talked about purpose, so maybe it has to do, something along the lines of that, but what's something that you're just like, man, like I really want somebody to hear this today?
Oh, that's a wild question. You
Yeah.
know, because I've taken so many different directions with so many businesses, and everybody's at such a different spot in their journey. But it always will come back to, who do you know and who do you trust? And I think like when you made the point earlier of like not having a network, like, yeah, you do. You're just not stoking the fire. And frankly, you're not trying hard enough. And like sometimes networking can be a drag, but like sometimes it's telling your story to a friend and they're like, you need to meet this guy, Roger. I didn't know you had a podcast. I didn't know very much about you other than you guys kind of think alike. You should meet each other. And so like it is incredibly easy to build a network if you have social skills. I'll be honest about that part. Social skills can be learned. There's parts of this that there's other
Yeah.
ways to do things, but during the pandemic and lockdown, I met some incredible people online, all connected to a very hyper niche music community. And so I end up going on vacations, inviting people to my bachelor party, meeting up with people around the country that I met during lockdown. And these are people that are self identified introverts, nerds, awkward, whatever. But then they made friends, came together, and had an amazing
Yeah.
time in their 30s when they didn't think they could do that anymore. And it's like,
Yeah.
we weren't that cheesy about it, but like it was just like boys being boys again.
Yeah.
Um, and so I want to encourage people, while I have this very set process that's like brand, build, belong, and how we're going to move anything forward. I think of everything like an unraveling onion or whatever from the inside out of like, who do you know? Tell them what you're working on. Tell them what you've been
Mm.
up to and what you're excited about. And also like where you're really nervous, scared, you might feel like you sound stupid. Say something like that to them because one, it's human, but two, they might know how to solve that problem. And like, I'm super pumped to go deep about this home repair guy because I'm like, I should know this man. Like, that sounds so sweet. And that number is a lot smaller in the world than you'd think. But
Yeah.
it's like, I encourage people to do that. So, like, you are an accessible person. Your contact forms, you would follow up with anything someone drops on your website, on your social media. And there's lots of guys like you that have like very worthwhile podcasts, blogs, anything that are putting information out there. And they would respond to anything you ask them. Or, hey, man, you got 20 minutes. I loved what you did here and I would love to know about them. And so even a lot of things from Yo Beebo came from me reaching out to someone I thought did something better than me and telling them I want to steal it. So do you want me to copy it from afar or do you want to become friends, share some of how you got here with me? I'll help you in any way that I can and see if we can have this nice symbiotic relationship until I get to your level or I can pay you back or I can do whatever. But you don't always have to shoot at the celebrities or the biggest guru in the game to see somebody that's successful and get a hold of them and people that are just at least putting themselves out there. And so LinkedIn's algorithm's weird now, but it's still an easy place
Yeah.
to find people. If they're posting constantly, they want to be contacted. If they've got a
Yeah.
podcast, they want to be contacted. Unless you're like a big, big dog, like you're doing this because you want to connect with people and your business probably has a vehicle for that. So even getting people to start looking at people they want to emulate, if they don't feel like they know anybody, just reach out to people in the game and maybe they'll throw you a bone or something that's awesome, and maybe you'll find out they're the worst person ever. Write everything down on paper that you hate about them and never be that.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that you had said, I found this group and now we're, friends that you never thought that you would meet. I think that that is so huge, especially, man, especially now with AI everything, right? Like everything is AI. You're reaching out, you're getting, those LinkedIn and those emails where it's like the brackets because,
Mhm.
contact dot first name, they didn't fill it out and the AI and stuff. And people are like, okay, well, is this a real person? Probably not, and having that human element of like, hey, I just want you to know I'm working on this thing. I thought of you, or I know that you're doing this, or I just wanted to share this with you because I respect you and because fill in the blank, right? I think that we've kind of lost that a little bit, that we think like, okay, if I reach out to somebody, it has to be polished. It has to be, clean and like free of errors or whatever, right? It has to be super professional, but sometimes you just got to reach out, right? You just have to, hey, like I just wanted to shoot something by you. Like you said, hey, do you have 20 minutes? Do you have 5 minutes, right? I just wanted to ask you a question. I just wanted to talk to you. I just wanted to start this conversation. And I think and that's also been a mindset shift that I've been trying to think through as well. Is that like, what? I'm connecting with people on LinkedIn, but it's like I may reach out and say, "Hey, I just wanted to connect," or they may say, "Hey, I just wanted to connect," and I'm like, "Oh, awesome, glad." Right, the typical glad we could connect, right? But it's like no, like they connected for a reason. Like let's talk, and if it's a pitch, okay, you know what, whatever, right? But like let's like assume the best, right? Just assume the
Right.
best, and when you go in with that mindset, it's a totally different mindset. And yeah, that connection is huge, and that's not just business wise, that's personal, because just like you said, I found this niche music community, now we hung out and did stuff, so that is great. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic.
It's the same story of how I quickly developed like a life in a community in Mexico where like I came down here with only so many days of Duolingo. Like I took American Sign Language in high school. I never focused on learning a foreign language other than the pleasantries of all my travels. But I'm like, I can't make people conform to me. And while I live in a very educated and modern city, it's still like people don't need English after school because so much business is done here in Spanish or people conform to them to do business. It's not like a
Yeah.
big tourism sector where they're trying to like sell to the foreigners on the street. And
Yeah.
so I think it was a cool thing because I came down and I would just go to the barber shop and like or go to places and kind of point at t-shirts and that's cool or like I like this and simple phrases. But then I'd ask people like, can I work out of the back here? Like you have good Wi-Fi? Great. Can I hang out and do some stuff? I want to hear you guys talk. I want to be a
Mhm.
part of this, but like I want to learn about your business, about your thing, whatever you're doing, because I don't know your problems, solutions. I don't know what the outcomes are like here. And it is so different. I'm not trying to adapt my mental or like make you adapt to me. I want to learn how
Yeah.
things are done.
Yeah.
And so that created such this sense of community. But like, I'm a I guess a board member for something called Tech Club here. And it is a
Oh
massive,
yeah,
almost
yeah. Sure.
500-person community that grew to that from like 9 people to a few hundred in a couple of years with a 50-50 Mexican to international audience and very few people from the United States. But it's just a place where you can network and belong and swap ideas and learn like the 101 of something and then go right to that guy and be like, Roger, that was dope. I want to hire you. I want to go deeper. I want to be your friend. And everybody's looking for friends because we're all kind of fish out of water. And so those types of things changed my life and changed my business and really propelled me. So now, like, even if someone's listening to this and doesn't even know how to start, like, I'm glad to think with you on even how to network and plug into something. Google the right things to find events where you're not going to feel like you're stuffing business cards into some like regional branch manager's hand and he doesn't know what to do with this, but like people that are like you, think like you, and immediately want to hang out, and want to like figure out how to support each other's businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I think that that's really cool. you had mentioned like, yeah, like let's just talk. Like some people don't even know like how do I start? You mentioned like the introverts and all that. It's like, well, how do I talk to people? How do I know I'm talking to the right people? And like you said, well, like I want to talk to somebody, but I don't want to necessarily talk to somebody that, may not have my same interest, but you're not going to find that out if you don't actually go and talk to somebody. You can go to a networking event and there's 15 people there. And it's like, well, I didn't really meet anybody. Well, what did you do? You just sat by the coffee and you just watch people walk by you, like, no, you have to reach out and you have to talk to them. And that's really cool, that tech club. And I remember you had mentioned that to me as you started talking about that. And that's a really cool thing to have. So Mark, if you would tell us, where can we find you? How can we connect with you? Website, anything like that. Where can we find you? How can they connect with you?
Super simple. I'm a daily poster on LinkedIn. Still trusting the process and the algorithm will play itself out, even if impressions and people reaching
Yeah.
out these days are a little different from the past quarter.
Yeah.
But I'm a daily poster on LinkedIn unless it's a holiday in the US or Mexico. So looking up Mark Donahue and Yo Beebo is pretty simple. And then yobebo.com and Affero, which is AFFERO.io. And I'm sure you'll have those links somewhere. But Affero and Yo
Yeah.
Beebo are the two main things in my life. But there is almost an endless network around those things. So if you look into me, sometimes you'll see me talking about small nonprofits, golf fundraisers, video projects, whatever. It's because I believe that like circles should be connected. Anyone that's a Yobebo client has been so qualified and is such a good person that I want them to all be friends and partners of each other very quickly. And the same thing with like anything I'm working on. So it's kind of like one big world and you find one way in, you'll probably find all the other stuff. But yep, I'm deep on LinkedIn. The social media stuff otherwise is more personal and nonsense and me playing with my band or whatever it is. But
Oh,
LinkedIn
that's
is
right.
the
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. You mentioned that you were in a band. Wait, do you play the drums or you play the guitar?
I'm playing the bass with these guys, but I
Okay.
play
That's
lots of
okay.
things. But
Cool.
they were putting together a little outfit down here. And so yeah, there's
That's
three
cool.
Mexican local guys and then me pointing again and hacking our way through conversations about timing and structure. But it's
Yeah.
also been
What,
another one of those like challenge yourself, throw yourself into
yeah.
something new, and you're
Yeah,
going to be better
100%.
for it.
Yeah, you always hear those stories that, sometimes they're in movies or whatever, but like, like you'll talk to these people and they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, I decided to move down to like Mexico or France for like a year or whatever, and I was a chef or I was a busboy. I didn't know the language, but after, a year and a half, I like now can speak it and, it's like slang or whatever, but it's like I can pretty much talk to anybody." So really quick, what kind of music do you play like with the band and all that, like that specific one?
And this specific band is a little bit of an intersection between hardcore and metalcore, but a little bit of a throwback to
That's
like the 2000s MySpace launch of like
okay.
the everybody had a guitar, every VFW in
Yes.
America was full of kids with straightened hair and swinging their arms around and stuff like that. So we're all
That's
dudes in our
cool.
30s, a little nostalgic for that era. We all found out we love some of the same bands and just started jamming.
That's cool. There was this one. So it's funny because my wife is Puerto Rican and my mother is Mexican, so very much in that world. But there was this one band that I grew up in. It must have been when I was in high school, 2000, somewhere around 2002, and I had just randomly found them on Spotify, and I can't remember the name of them now, but it was something like El Nino, something like that. But they were like
El Nino.
hard. Is that they're like a hardcore like rock band? But then all of a sudden they like switch, and it's like salsa, and then they switch back, and then like they do like this thing where like they mix like rock, and then they do like Hispanic like salsa and just like reggaeton and all that sort of stuff. So it was a really cool. I just happened to it was about a month ago. I was like, oh yeah, I just randomly came across them again. I was like, dude, I totally forgot about them. So pretty cool, man. Anyway,
It's the world down here, man. Like
yeah,
I was very accepted, but I think that's mute and like niche music fans anywhere in the world.
yeah,
We can
yeah,
either be hyper pretentious or very, very open minded. And I think it's the same for anything. Like if you're into sports or comic books or like programming
yeah,
or whatever, you're like knitting, reading, you're going to find the people that you want to find and other people you're like, oh, those are posers or,
yeah,
whatever. Like you still need to put yourself out there. And if they're a
yeah,
poser, they're still probably more like you than not. Right.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm again
100%.
like, I'm one of those extroverted introverts in a lot of ways. Like I do have to
Yeah,
turn it on or prepare myself for something. But
yeah,
like
Yeah.
I don't think I would have ever done this in Ohio in a lot of ways, but
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
different market or different space, and I think like if you've always been where your roots are planted, that's cool. Then go start your network or building something with people on the internet because it's way
Yeah.
easier to almost like, here's their bio, here's what they stand for and what they're doing. You're like, that's someone I wish I could hang out with. Then literally
Yeah.
just reach out to them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? It's funny that you had mentioned that because like not a closet, right? But like I love reading comics. Like that's something that I enjoy doing, you know. And I'm been reading. I'm more of a DC fan than I am Marvel, especially. Well, I like Marvel before their movies and stuff because then they started to make the comics based. Then they
Yep.
started to make the comics based on the movie. It became the comics based on the movie, based on the movie, the comics, and it was weird. It's like.
Yep.
But DC's just been like in fact, actually, even and this is gonna be super nerdy, but like during the Dark Knight in 2008 or whatever, in the comics, if you were a comic fan, Batman was dead, right? But Marvel always tries to like line up everything. But DC was like, Batman's dead in our comics right now. Dark Knight is out. You know, that's typical in comics, but Batman was dead during that time. And oh, well, he was dead. But anyway, yeah, we'll be here another 20 minutes. But anyway, so yeah, it was just very interesting. But yeah, no, that's cool. Find your niche. Yeah. Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. That was a great conversation. If anybody was probably listening, they're like, "Well, Roger's finishing up," and then now here we had another 10 minutes of talking, and I hope people didn't miss that because that's so crucial. Find people to talk to. If you don't know where to go on the internet. Start posting about stuff. Start asking stuff. And Mark, I think that's great. So I hope that people reach out to you. Don't forget to connect with Mark. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, man. We'll talk soon and hopefully I'm a guest on this sometime later in the future.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you.